Hello everyone and welcome to Asthma UK's latest health and wellbeing webinar. For this series of webinars, we've reached out far and wide to find experts who've kindly volunteered their time, and their aim is to help us to help you keep your mind, body and soul active during these uncertain times. Today's webinar is slightly different, as we'll be focusing on how to talk to children about the ever-changing situation that is the coronavirus crisis. Despite being a parent myself, sometimes it's easy to forget that I'm not the only one who's having ups and downs. Our children are in the same situation. Bored at home, missing friends and grandparents, and if my daughter is anything to go by, they're longing to go back to school, to some sort of routine and normality. As an 8-year-old, my own daughter is at an age where she understands what's going on in the outside world, and like me, has her own worries, concerns and questions. Which is why today it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Emma, who's the founder of Transforming Young Minds. Emma is a life coach, a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner who has experience of working with children, teens and families. She is passionate about life coaching, and her mission is to help her clients be the best version of themselves. Before we go any further though, as always, there are a few house rules. Please be aware that today's webinar has been pre-recorded. However, we do have a chat function enabled, and we'd love you to say hello or post any hints and tips that you want to share, and do let us know any ideas you have about future health and wellbeing webinars you'd like to see from us. Remember, this is a family-friendly environment, so when chatting, do please be nice. The chat is of course moderated, but if you have any medical questions, please be aware that our moderators are unable to answer these as they have no medical training. Please remember, Asthma UK has launched its emergency charity appeal, and if you are able to, please do show your support so we can continue providing people with asthma the help they need now and in the future. So, without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to hand you over to Emma for today's webinar.
Hi, I'm Emma and I'm the founder of Transforming Young Minds. I am an NLP coach, an empowering learning coach, a resilience coach, and I'm also an NLP practitioner. I am delighted to be asked by Asthma UK to come and talk to you about how to talk to your children and to manage your own anxieties as we navigate COVID-19. Asthma UK is actually a charity close to my heart. I also have asthma, and as my daughter has asthma, so when this was announced, it did trigger some anxieties for me. And I'm glad to say that through the step-by-step process that I'm going to talk you through today, I'm able to manage the anxieties when they come, which they do, and I'm also to help my children with theirs too. So before we begin, who am I? I founded Transforming Young Minds 3.5 years ago because I felt that there wasn't much out there in terms of coaching for young people, coaching them to help them get to overcome their obstacles, get to their targets, and also to help them be who they want to be. Over that time, I've worked with over 300 families, helping them come together, work together, and be the people that they really want to be. So today is all about you, and I'm going to give you a very easy approach and how to talk to your children about what they're going through right now, and also to help you navigate through this time yourself, because what we know is true about our children is that they are always watching us. So I guess before we start, it's really important to understand what is anxiety. It's something that we talk about a lot, or we hear about a lot. And I guess it's really important to understand that this is really a superpower. Anxiety is a bit of old kit. So if we were our very own superheroes, we might have a power pack that's a little bit out of date. And that's exactly what anxiety is. Anxiety is a response to danger. It actually happens in the amygdala in your brain, which is actually the size of an almond. So when you are listening to children that you think are anxious, it's really important to talk about what it is, because once we know what it is, it doesn't feel so scary. So when we feel that we are in danger, the amygdala responds by going to one or three or all of the things which are fight, flight, or freeze. Why is this so important? Because sometimes when our children are behaving in a certain way, it's very difficult for us to understand what that might be. You might be seeing defiance, you might be seeing anger, you could be seeing very emotional, irrational thoughts, or children wanting to control what they can control. So that might be avoidance or refusal to do homework or tidy up or do their chores, or even go out for fear of catching COVID-19. This is all normal. We are being challenged in a way that we've never felt. Everything's been challenged, from our physiological being to our health to our reward need, which is why we're not going to school, we're not getting feedback. Perhaps we're worrying about money, and the children are feeling that too. So I guess the one tip I have is that when you see a behaviour, ask yourself, is this anxiety? Anger is often misread for anxiety. So the next time you see your children having a meltdown or being defiant, maybe ask yourself, what is this behaviour trying to tell me? So now we know what anxiety is. When you're talking to your children, explain that this is our superpower. It's actually there to protect us from danger. Now, if you were a caveman, what would you be in danger from? One of the exercises that I do with my children and my clients is to imagine that they are a caveman and what kind of dangers they'd be facing. It could be a woolly mammoth, a saber-toothed tiger. What options would they have if they woke up and they could hear danger coming? And they'll always say, I could fight it, I might run, or I might hide. And that is the fight, flight, or freeze. So when your child is angry and they start screaming out of nowhere, or that they are defying what you're asking them to do, perhaps ask yourself, is my child in fight, flight, or freeze? Now, if they're in fight, what you'll know is true is that the brain is signaling that they are in danger and they're doing what they think they should. So that's what anxiety is. So I want you to always know that it's your superpower. And whenever there is a behaviour, it's just to check in with yourself about what is the child trying to say, what is it they might be feeling, and it will help you navigate and step back and react in a way that might be more positive for you and your family. So worries. I'm talking to you as someone that often experiences quite a high level anxiety, which is why I actually set up Transforming Young Minds. The step-by-step approach I'm going to talk to you about now is going to help you and your family navigate anxiety and worry. So the first thing I want to talk about is the power of breathing. Now, breathing is obviously the thing that keeps us alive, but it's the one superpower we have just to tell our brain when it's feeling in danger that it can calm down. Now, breathing exercises are brilliant to do with you and your family. You might do this through yoga. You could look up on YouTube. But the one thing that I do with breathing is just to help our children understand what it does. Breathing releases some really powerful chemicals that push down cortisol, which is your stress chemical. It tells our brain that we're safe, and it gives us time just to ground and take stock of what we're doing. Breathing can be done at really nice times. So you might do this when you're putting your children to bed, and you might do it and you see your children reacting in a way that you're not so happy with. It'll allow you to get to take some time for yourself and suppress some of the cortisol that might be triggering you or your children to behave in a certain way. So breathing is your superpower. So step one is breathe. The way to breathe is to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. You might be breathing in for 5 and holding and breathing out for 7. So when I do it with my children, I ask them to think of something beautiful. You might think of a colour or a sound or a feeling, and you're breathing in through your nose, closing your mouth, and out. Now, bedtime's a really lovely time to practice this. When you're doing it at bedtime, it just allows you to come to a lovely positive state and to start to really get your brain to understand that it is safe. So breathing, number one, is your superpower. And when your children start to talk about COVID, ask them to stay still and breathe and just picture something absolutely beautiful, or feel something really calm as it fills your body full of breath. Now, we talked about breathing being our superpower, but sometimes our brain just works really quickly. The most important thing is to get your children to really understand their feelings. And I call that naming to tame. Because when we name to tame, our brain gives it a second to really make sense of what we're feeling. Now, that can be quite tricky for children, and it can be quite tricky for us. So if you see a behaviour, I want you to name it. So it could be saying, son, I can see you're angry. And anger normally comes from fear. So I'm going to let you be angry, but I want you to know that it's okay to feel fear. And fear is something we're going to walk and talk through. Naming to tame is very powerful. So it could be with regards to COVID. You might see anger or crying. I want you to ask them, if you could name that feeling, what would you describe it as? You might get to children that are into animals or things to describe what that feeling would be if it was an animal. But you name to tame. So the next time you feel anxious about the world we're in, name it. I feel anxious because. I feel angry because. And then allow you to start to find that because. Because what you want to do is begin to reframe. So you're going to breathe, you're going to name to tame, and you're going to reframe. Now, reframing is one of the most powerful things you can teach your children to do. By the reframe game, what you're looking at is accepting the feeling. You are going to name what it feels like inside you, and you're going to reframe it. Now, COVID-19 is a real challenge, and there's no getting away from it. And the one thing I would always say as a therapist and a coach is to get onto the page of your children. Often we're told not to worry. Don't worry about it. It's not going to happen to you. But really, children know that we're lying. We can't actually guarantee anything, but what we can do is empathize with how we're feeling. Because when you say not to worry, it makes you worry. It's like saying to someone to calm down. Calm down, and it doesn't make you calm down. But what if you were to reassure and reaffirm your children's feelings? So I get you worrying, and mummy does sometimes too. And it's okay to worry. But how can we look at this a little bit differently? Now, COVID-19 is taking the lives of so many people. It's making us reassess our lives, whether it be through being cleaner or maybe doing less, buying less, looking at what's important. What COVID-19 is giving us is time to be still, to look at what's around us, to not be on our technology all the time, perhaps, or perhaps to start looking outside at the blossom trees at the moment, or maybe just really appreciating the NHS, or maybe understanding a bit more about our children than we ever knew. So ask your children to reframe. What can they be grateful for out of COVID? If there's a situation they're worrying about, how could they look at that differently? Perhaps that worry is making them stronger, learning how to be flexible. But take the worry, name it, and reframe it. Because when you reframe, you're looking at moving forward. So now we've talked about breathing. We've talked about naming the feeling, and that comes from you as parents. We've talked about reframing, but now we talk about controlling the controllables. Now, what I'm seeing most at the moment is children that are trying to control what they can control. So that might be through being defiant. It could be through, not doing homework, or it could be through telling you what they want and not doing anything that sits in with the family structure. And that is completely normal. Remember that what we're seeking as humans is control, and that control is all gone. For our children, the safety of school is gone. The feedback from teachers has gone off. Their friends have gone unless they can see them online. So getting your children to control what they can control is actually very, very powerful. And the way we do that is by looking at what we can control. So it could be that your children say, I'm never going to go back to school. What if I can't go back to school? The truth is, we name the feeling. We reframe it to be what is happening that could be quite positive now by not being at school. Well, maybe you're doing more art. Maybe you're playing music. Maybe you're able to spend time with your family. You might be cooking more. You might be talking to your parents more. Maybe you're seeing your parents because your parents are often at work. So what we are doing now is looking at controlling what we can control. So we can't control going back to school, but what we can control is perhaps we're able to play our computer games a bit more. Or perhaps we're able to go out and play in the park a bit more, kicking a ball around than we could. Perhaps what we can control is how we feel right now. Maybe we could be more grateful. By controlling the controllables, what you're saying is there is a lot we can't control, but what can we do now? And that is really powerful, because when you go from reframing to controlling the controllables, you're able to feel like you are safe. So I would love you to look at what your children can control. Perhaps you could do an activity with them where they can look at all of the things that they can do for themselves. And that will also teach them resilience, because by being resilient, you're adaptable, you're flexible. but you're also far more in control of what you can do with your future. So controlling the controllables is great, and it allows your children and you to realise we might be in this situation, there is a lot we can do. So there's a lot we've gone through. Now, one of the big challenges I see as a coach is, especially girls, being very hard on themselves. And it's really important as we're spending time with family to use this time really wisely. And the one thing that is really powerful is kindness and compassion to yourself. And gratitude is the attitude. How can you be kind to yourself through this time? You might say, do you know what, I'm really anxious, but I'm really proud that I'm managing it. I felt really vulnerable, but I've worked a way out how to be who I am and be happy with that. Or perhaps you're really proud of yourself that you're managing to stay at home with your family every day. What could your children be proud of? What can they say about themselves that would enable them to feel better about themselves? Because when we're kind and compassionate, we are releasing oxytocin, which is actually a very powerful chemical and helps combat anxiety. So every day, I would love you and your family to talk about what you love about each other. Ask your children what they love about themselves. Now, at the beginning, they might find that quite difficult, especially teenage girls. You tend to find it really difficult. But the more you're doing this, the more they're learning to love themselves. And the more they're building their self-esteem and confidence for when life does go back to normal. And being grateful is really powerful. So if you could ask your children to gratitude journal or just talk about it, or perhaps you might be grateful and really loud about that so that your children are modelling that excellence. But being grateful and compassionate and kind to others is a very powerful way to move through anxiety. So we have done lots there. And I'm so happy that Asthma UK are helping you learn how to do this, because this isn't just about COVID. This is about the future and managing life as we move through. And by doing this, you're teaching yourself and your children to be resilient, flexible, and have a growth mindset, which is so powerful in all areas of our lives. So I'm just going to work through. Remember that anxiety is normal. It's a superpower. It's there to help you. It helps you respond to danger. It protects your life. And right now we're in a choppy waters. It feels like quite unsafe. So it's not a surprise that you and your children might be feeling anxious. So these are the ways you help it. You breathe. Breathing is your superpower. It releases happy feelings, chemicals in your brain. Name to tame. Name your feeling. Show your children that feelings are normal, and by labeling it, you're able to decipher what is true and what is false. And also accept the reframe game. Sometimes things are rubbish, but what we can do is look at what we can use to move ourselves forward. Reframing and taming the feeling is a very powerful way to move yourself on. Control the controllables. Ask your children, yes, this is out of our control, but what can we do to improve ourselves? There's lots we can do. Gratitude is the attitude. Be kind to yourself, be grateful, and you're going to move yourself forward and be able to look at things in a different way. So that is a whistle-stop tour, and at Transforming Young Minds, I'm here to navigate with you through these times. And trust me when I say that while this is challenging, we are learning things that we've never had the chance to learn, which is being resilient, being strong, overcoming challenges, and being grateful. And the world is going to improve, and we are going to look back at this time. So my last question is, what would you like to reflect back on when life gets back to normal? And by putting these steps in place, you're going to be able to look back at this time and know that you did the very best you can. So thank you, Asthma UK, for asking me to come on. I hope it's been useful. If you'd like to contact me, Asthma UK have got my details. Feel free to drop me a line. And take care, be safe, and enjoy the summer. Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much, Emma, and thank you for today's session. To all of you at home who joined us today, thank you again for watching. We really hope that you found Emma's session useful. If you'd like to repeat Emma's session today, please remember to keep your eyes peeled for an email over the next day or so, which will give you a link to replay the webinar. To make sure you keep up to date with the latest asthma news and advice, and to be the first to hear about more expert webinars designed to keep your mind, body and soul healthy at this time, please do follow Asthma UK on Facebook and Twitter, or sign up to receive our regular email updates. Once again, please do remember, Asthma UK is a charity, and we've launched an emergency appeal which we'd love you to support. Your donation, no matter how big or small, will help us to continue providing people with asthma the help they need now and in the future. On behalf of myself and everyone here at Asthma UK, stay safe, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon.